Why does it feel like nobody sticks around in their job anymore? The US Bureau of Labor Statistics state that the average number of lifetime employers has increased from the 1950s to somewhere around 12 and 13 jobs for a person at the age of 55 today. For a person that's 25 years old today, they're expected to have between 15 and 16 jobs in their lifetime, with considerably more periods of unemployment in between. If you just listen to the discourse in the news and media, it feels definitely like employment is becoming an even shorter experience, with people flying from job to job and rarely staying long anywhere. Quiet quitting, nobody wants to work anymore, gig economies. We've heard the trendy words. Why is this happening? Are younger generations just incapable of committing to a job, or is it evil corporations that are pushing people out more aggressively? That's the question. I'm Mike. I've got 25 years experience in business from pharma tech and consulting. I've held C-level roles in international companies. I have degrees in business, human resources, and psychology. On this channel, I cover business and careers. I analyze and pick apart why companies do the things they do. Today, the topic is why people are working for shorter and shorter period of time at their employers. Let's get stuck in. First off, you have to go really far back to consistently see something approaching lifetime employment as a commonly occurring theme. As in, you have to go back and look at a man at the age of 55 in the mid-1950s. And honestly, apart from the maybe reality of the Japanese salaryman, lifetime employment as a concept has generally probably never really existed in the West ever. The idea that a person got a job straight out of college and stayed at the same company until they retired hasn't been the norm for a long time. Median tenure has remained stable for a long time, but the average number of employments over a lifetime has generally been rising. Baby boomers were averaging around 12 jobs, and today people born in 1980 or later, so people under 45 years, are already averaging about 9 jobs in their lifetime, with at least 20 more years to go before possible retirement. Assuming average numbers of employment of approaching 15 or 16 or 17 employers is not unrealistic, which is a fair bit up from the 10 or 11 or 12, which we saw 10, 15 years back. Today, a person under 35 is on average likely to stay between 1 and 3 years in a job, where the number in 1983 was between 1.5 and 3.5. That doesn't sound like a huge difference, but go back an additional 10 years and it was 2 to 4 years. What we also know is that, generally speaking, employees in the West switch job more often the younger they are, but in general over time, we are increasingly more likely to, on average, have more employers in a lifetime compared to any previous generation. If you are new here and you are enjoying the video, then please consider subscribing. I'm trying to grow the subscriber base in my little community here, so it would be hugely appreciated if you click the subscribe button. Thanks.
In the 1950s, 40% of the working population were working in the car factories or in associated industries. So for the 20th century, it's a major industry of the city, and the whole life of the city depended on it.
First up is changing industries. From the US to the UK to France and to some extent Germany, traditional manpower-intense manufacturing industries have declined in terms of the number of employees they've employed.
America has lost 35% of our manufacturing jobs in the last 40 years.
This includes raw manufacturing like steel and other types of refining work. So it can include automotive industries, electronics, appliances. Basically, it's about building stuff for other people. Middle-class jobs down at the plant, as we knew them 30 years ago, just aren't as common anymore.
Since then, of course, manufacturing output has soared in China.
Overall, these industries have been massively outsourced to other countries: China, India, the Far East. But if you're thinking the jobs exist over there, you'd be wrong, because those jobs have also been automated. Manufacturing these days, for a lot of manufacturing, is massively automated. Today, Amazon has over 1 million robots in their factories replacing humans or augmenting humans at a minimum. It's often only in highly specialized manufacturing like building of aircraft or windmills that specialized manual labor is still mainly required.
Tuesday's decisions in Detroit and Illinois put a dramatic spotlight on public workers' pensions and why they are under increasing pressure in states and cities facing huge debt problems.
Second is more of a Western thing, especially the UK and definitely the US. A lot of countries experimented with pension and retirement models that incentivize staying at a job. Sticking around for 20 years to get a golden paycheck was, to a degree, a thing in some job markets. These highly attractive pension models have largely been phased out, notably by industries like the American auto sector throughout the 70s and onwards. Now, if you were paying attention earlier, you were probably thinking, why were people employed for so long in manufacturing like the American auto industry? Why were people staying? Apart, of course, from those pension schemes.
The share of workers in the U.S. who belong to a labor union, like I do, has fallen to around 10%. If you take out the government employees, it's 6%.
Well, Unions. In the 1960s, 30% of all private sector employees in the US were in some way protected by unions. In 1995, that was 10%. Today, it's less than 6%. The trend of deunionization is a common one across a lot of Western countries. The US is among the countries with the greatest decline. It is also among the countries with the most aggressive anti-union legislation that has been passed over the last 30 to 40 years. This also applies to the United Kingdom. Continental Europe has also seen declines in union participation, but this is less a result of anti-union practices and more down to lower voluntary union participation and a drift towards industries without histories of union protections, like tech. As manufacturing has declined, other sectors have grown. Specifically, 2 sectors have grown significantly in size. It's the financial sector and it's services. Services is everything from hospitality, so hotels and restaurants, to tech. And this is important because these industries have their individual challenges. For hospitality, restaurants, food service, it sucks. Or rather, it's incredibly hard work. It's low paying, it's high stress, it's in a sector with low margins and a lot of small businesses. It's a sector that works outside of normal working hours for a lot of staff, and it's a sector that doesn't demand a lot of highly skilled labor. That means staff are relatively easy to replace because training and onboarding is relatively inexpensive. Employee engagement in hospitality generally trends lower than other industries, and stress, workload, weak management, and bad compensation are often cited as reasons. Tech doesn't suck. Or at least if you got into a good company, it generally has been seen as a way to get good salaries, challenging work with strong development opportunities in a growing sector. But again, the tech industry is almost completely devoid of any kind of employee protections that remotely look like unions. And although tech in itself has been a high growth, high demand industry, it's also been an industry with constantly changing skill demands, where the value of experience and tenure hasn't been as high as specific technological capabilities and capacity for change. The half-life of skills has just consistently been declining. I did a video a while back about how tech doesn't need you anymore. I also did a video about how corporate CEO salaries are exploding exponentially. Well, in an increasingly financialized world, the focus on the bottom line, shareholder value, has driven a level of cost consciousness we've never seen before. It's a fact that employers in the 1960s saw the role of an organization as a balancing act between growth, profitability, and employee loyalty. There was a societal responsibility that employers more actively took on. That's not the case to the same extent anymore. This has taken a lot of different shapes, but 3 more obvious ones are more aggressive and common cost cutting, outsourcing and offshoring, and the gigification of employment. The fact is, when the numbers aren't great, companies today are more likely to cut and to cut more aggressively than they would have 30 years ago. But it's not only the employer side that's contributing to this shorter and shorter employment tenure. Modern employees have also changed. Whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, one of the consistent differences between different generations is patience and loyalty.
Now you add in the sense of impatience, right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week.
A 25-year-old today is far more likely to quit their job due to discontent than a 25-year-old was in 1970. Dissatisfaction with management, salaries, development opportunities, or colleagues are more likely to lead to an individual today to the conclusion that they should quit and find another job. Studies by Gallup consistently show this lower tolerance for unmet expectations.
My view is I don't even like the phrase work-life balance. I think it's misleading. I like the phrase work-life harmony.
Also, a general trend is a higher tendency to change tracks as a result of a major life event. Participation rates for women post-maternity vary wildly in the West, and it's one of the places where Western countries are not particularly similar. But the trend for both men and women when having children to make major job changes is clearly there. Opting out of a high-stress job while having small kids is increasingly common, where again, the tendency in the past would have been to tough it out for those years with small kids. Gen Alpha and Gen Z, according to Deloitte, value stability, seniority, and loyalty much lower than the ability to learn, grow, and advance. In a society with rapidly changing technological landscapes and rapidly changing skill requirements, younger generations will tend to prioritize moving to learn in order to stay relevant more than staying in place for job security. And it's not the case that younger generations don't need or desire security. They very much do desire security, But many have come to the conclusion that staying in place is not in and of itself secure. Security is seen as coming with skill acquisition, not with loyalty. The gig is one of those chicken and the egg things, because the gig speaks to a large part to younger generations. The gig allows for looser connections to an employer that they might not have a particularly strong loyalty towards anyway. It allows the people to structure their lives according to their needs in the short and medium term, and it leaves them relatively unrestrained in terms of options. Now, whether that's the DoorDash gig or being an independent self-employed consultant, these models give a lot of what a lot of employees are looking for. Now, is all this a good thing? Some might say that increasing the number of employments is just a fact of life and neither good nor bad. I also think that many would say that it's the way society is going, the speed of change, the pace needed to learn and adjust as an organization and as individuals is just going to be a fact of life. And maybe it is, but I'm not necessarily sure it's a completely good thing. There is a perspective on it where you could see it as a never-ending spiral. Think of the following scenario. An employee is seeking constantly to develop their skills. So the employee switches jobs whenever they don't feel they're learning enough. So what happens at the company? The company stops investing in organizational learning because they know people are going to leave anyway. And then what happens? More staff leave because they don't feel they're learning and the process accelerates. Benefits have more and more been transitioning from retention-based initiatives like those 1960s pensions to engagement-based initiatives like pizza and free parking. It's not meant to keep you there forever. It's meant to keep you happy while you're there. People are also loosely connected through gigs, so they feel no loyalty to the company and people treat it more like just a job. And with that, the company seeks more and more to treat employees just like resources. Employees employed through gigs receive fewer true employee benefits. That saves money for the company and it potentially reduces the employer's need to reinforce retention. The less dependent an employer is on an employee, the less the employer will invest in retention. Although not a gig, the example of Amazon fulfillment centers that have over 100% turnover rates is telling. Replacement is more important than retention at Amazon. Burn and churn is what insiders call it. Basically, we could, slowly but surely, in large parts of the job market, be risking creating a highly transactional, disconnected employment form where there's no reason to be engaged and loyal other than the paycheck, and employers, on the other hand, increasingly less and less are interested in retaining talent. Ultimately, employment risks becoming a sourcing and replacement exercise with little to no meaning. And that would be fine if we didn't know that meaning, purpose, and values are elements that all generations of people, to varying degrees, seek, and research does show that these elements lead to higher performance through higher engagement. On top of that, the job security thing is also one that concerns me.
And so you have an entire generation that's growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations.
Gen Z and millennials report significantly higher levels of stress, insecurity, anxiety across multiple surveys. Macro situations like wars, global economic uncertainty, climate change, they play a massive role in this, but the stress of constantly having to gain new skills, the concerns about not being able to find gainful employment, and the fear of burning out or being replaced are very real, and this low tenure, high churn job market is not one that is contributing positively. The gig where you have to hit an average speed of 22 miles an hour to get your tip is not one that minimizes stress. Knowing that your job is at risk of being AI'd can't be comfortable for anyone. These trends don't seem to be reversing. It does have its positives, but those negatives I don't think are insignificant. And you, what do you think? Share in the comments and remember to subscribe. See you soon.